participated also in such committees that helped the Relator Generalis in formulating this. I appreciate it very much.
Following a devastating discovery that put his determination and leadership to the test, Cardinal Luis Antonio Tagle recently made a significant announcement that resulted in him capturing the attention of people all over the world. His revelation has caused many people to wonder what this means for his legacy and the future of the Church. This comes at a time when his stance on important issues is becoming increasingly controversial, and the challenges that surround it are mounting. Participate with us as we dissect the specifics of this announcement. Luis Antonio Tagle, the firstborn child of a deeply religious Catholic family, was born on June 21, 1957. He is a visionary leader who has laid the foundations for his organization. While his mother, Milagros Gokim, had Chinese-Filipino roots, his father, Manuel Topacio Tagle, was of Tagalog descent. His mother was raised in the Philippines. Milagros was employed at Equitable PCI Bank prior to making a more complete commitment to his family life. He can trace his paternal ancestry back to Imus, Cavite, where his grandfather Florencio was a member of the Spanish Christian Principalia, a social elite prior to the Philippine Revolution of 1896. Tagle's paternal ancestry can be traced back to Imus, Cavite, due to the unfortunate fact that Florencio was injured in a bomb explosion during World War II. Tagle's grandmother was forced to run a local diner in order to provide for the family. Tagle's educational journey commenced at St. Andrew's School, located in Parañaque, Rizal. Between the years 1973 and 1974, he successfully completed both elementary and high school education. As a result of his friendships with priests, he experienced a sense of calling to a life of religious service. His enrollment at San Jose Seminary, which was run by Jesuits, ultimately made it easier for him to continue his education at Ateneo de Manila University. After graduating from that institution in 1973 with a Bachelor of Arts degree in pre-divinity, he went on to earn a Master of Arts degree in theology from the Loyola School of Theology. Between the years 1987 and 1991, he attended the Catholic University of America in order to pursue a Doctor of Philosophy degree in sacred theology. He trained under Joseph A. Camanchak there. Camanchak praised Tagle as one of the finest students he had encountered in over 4 decades, suggesting that Tagle could have emerged as Asia's foremost theologian if he had not chosen the path of the bishopric. His dissertation conducted an investigation into the application of episcopal collegiality in the teaching and practice of Paul VI. Additionally, Tagle received honorary degrees from both Catholic Theological Union and La Salle University. He continued his education by enrolling in classes at the Institute of Pope Paul VI University. Tagle demonstrated his ability to read Spanish, French, Korean, and Latin, in addition to being fluent in Tagalog, English, and Italian on the language level. After receiving his ordination in the Diocese of Imus on February 27, 1982, he took the first step in his journey towards becoming a pastor. Initially, he served as an associate pastor at San Agustin Parish in Mendez Núñez, Cavite. Subsequently, he assumed a variety of positions, including those of spiritual director and rector at the diocesan seminary established in Imus. Following his completion of his education in the United States, he went on to serve as the parish priest at Nuestra Señora del Pilar Cathedral Parish and as the Episcopal Vicar for Religious. Apart from that, he was a professor of theology at San Carlos Seminary, as well as Divine Word Seminary, which is located in Tagaytay. His appointment to the International Theological Commission, where he worked closely with Cardinal Joseph Ratzinger, came about in 1997, when Pope John Paul II made the appointment. Additionally, Tagle served on the editorial board for the History of Vatican II project from 1995 until 2001. He was a member of the board. Do you have any idea what kind of a leader Tagle is, and why have his abilities to lead been called into question? What exactly is the origin of the controversy that is revolving around him? Compassionate and action-oriented as a leader. In addition to his expertise in administration and theology, Tagle's influence extended far beyond those areas. He truly exemplified the principles that Pope Francis has been advocating for, and he was well known for his intellect and empathy. His efforts were consistently focused on elevating those who were marginalized and struggling to make ends meet, which demonstrated his dedication to finding practical solutions and making genuine changes. Some of his most important initiatives were carried out in sub-Saharan Africa, a region where a large number of Catholics were struggling to make ends meet due to severe economic difficulties. Tagle did not merely offer words of encouragement. Rather, he took action by putting into action measures that were practical. The Vatican, under his direction, formed partnerships with the communities in the surrounding area in order to establish funding for educational and vocational training programs, thereby establishing long-term avenues for the improvement of people's lives. The alleviation of poverty was only one aspect of his mission at the time. Additionally, it was intended to strengthen faith. These efforts demonstrated the Church's unwavering dedication to meeting both spiritual and material requirements in a comprehensive manner. Tagle was an important figure in the process of fostering reconciliation in Myanmar, a country that was previously torn apart by political and ethnic strife. He was aware that signing political agreements was not the only thing that was necessary to bring about peace. It required fostering dialogue and bridging the gap between different religious traditions. In order to provide communities that were experiencing division with hope, he established a forum for understanding and unity by bringing together leaders from the Buddhist and Catholic communities. Moreover, Tagle's distinctive approach to inculturation was a distinguishing feature of his work. Within the context of Catholic liturgical practices, he advocated for the incorporation of indigenous music, art, and language from indigenous communities. From his perspective, the Church was not merely an external entity that existed within cultures. Rather, it was an integral part of those cultures. Through his vision, communities were given the ability to express their faith in ways that were both authentic and impactful, thereby strengthening their connection to the Church. While serving as the president of Caritas Internationalis, Tagle was in charge of the Share the Journey campaign. The objective of this campaign was to bring attention to the difficulties that are experienced by refugees and migrants. There was more to his advocacy than just empty rhetoric. During his personal visits to refugee camps in Lebanon and Jordan, he engaged in conversation with individuals and listened to the stories they shared. During the time that he was using his platform to raise their voices and remind the world of their common humanity, his empathy was readily apparent. A number of urgent global issues, including climate change, poverty, and migration, were addressed by Tagle's leadership responsibilities. Putting an emphasis on action rather than words, he was instrumental in fostering collaborations between the Vatican and secular organizations. His vision included a church that was involved in the pursuit of justice and stood in solidarity with the international community in order to address issues that were systemic in nature. In the year 2019, Pope Francis presented Tagle with the responsibility of leading the Congregation for the Evangelization of Peoples, which places him at the forefront of the Church's efforts to spread the gospel to people all over the world. Because of this role, he was able to supervise the dissemination of Catholic teachings, particularly in regions that were experiencing significant growth that the Church was experiencing. As a result of his partnership with Pope Francis, which was founded on mutual trust and shared principles, many people began to identify Tagle as a potential candidate for the position of Pope. Google's leadership style reflected Francis's humility and warmth, which enabled him to connect with people they encountered in their daily lives. Whether he was responding to questions about theology or eating meals with refugees, he exemplified the approachable spirit that had won the hearts of millions of people. It is not a coincidence that he succeeded. It originated from a profound dedication to the principles of compassion and inclusion, as well as a determination to address issues that are prevalent on a global scale. However, Tagle faced a number of obstacles on the path that lay ahead of him. His ability to guide the Church through its most difficult times would be put to the test by the complex problems that lay beneath the accolades that he received. However, why do people continue to be against Tagle? Could there be more to his story? Or is it connected to the possibility that he will succeed Pope Francis as the leader of the Catholic Church? Maintain your attention to find out. During the journey to the papacy, there were many obstacles and debates. In the discussions that have taken place regarding the selection of the next pope, Cardinal Luis Antonio Tagle has been considered a leading contender on numerous occasions. Awe and admiration have been garnered as a result of his compassionate leadership and international appeal. However, there are analysts who argue that his path to the papacy is not guaranteed in any way, shape, or form. In spite of the fact that his close ties to Pope Francis have garnered him a great deal of respect, they also present him with a number of challenges. Tagle is required to demonstrate that he is more than just an Asian Francis, and to carve out a distinct identity that resonates with the College of Cardinals, according to the perspectives of experts. It has been determined that there are 3 significant factors that could be detrimental to his candidature. The first thing to note is that Tagle is facing stiff competition from other candidates, the most notable of whom is the Singaporean Cardinal William Goh himself. Goh, like Tagle, is of Asian descent and speaks English, which is in line with the growing emphasis that the Church is placing on pagans outside of Europe. The perception is that Goh is someone who is able to connect with the conservative factions of the Church. Tagle, who is known for his progressive views, may find it challenging to emulate Goh's ability to connect with these factions. Another point to consider is that although many people admire Tagle's progressive image, it does come with some inherent dangers. In the Church, he has been a staunch supporter of hospitality. He has fought against language that divides people, and he has advocated for inclusivity, particularly with regard to LGBTQ Catholics. He cautioned against ethnic and cultural conflicts that could put the mission of the Church in jeopardy, and he criticized populist movements that, in his opinion, misrepresented the essence of unity. This was done at a conference that took place in Lisbon not too long ago. It is possible that more traditional members of the Church hierarchy will be turned off by these views, despite the fact that they are popular among progressive Catholics. Last but not least, critics have brought up Tagle's perceived reluctance to take a more firm stance on issues that pertain to China. The relationship between the Vatican and Beijing is a delicate and complicated subject, and there are those who believe that Tagle's relative silence on this issue could be detrimental to his efforts to become president. It was speculated by observers that other candidates might appear to be more inclined to directly confront these challenges, which could potentially give them an advantage in the eyes of the cardinals. In addition to these specific challenges, Tagle's resemblance to Pope Francis had sparked both admiration and apprehension among those who had seen him. Analysts pointed out that Tagle's language frequently echoed that of Francis, particularly with regard to populism and migration. For example, they recalled Francis's remarks that he made upon his return from Kazakhstan. In those remarks, he framed migration as an opportunity to improve the intellectual and cultural landscape of the West. In a manner that is analogous, Tagle had cautioned against attitudes that could be detrimental to the spiritual unity of the Church, putting an emphasis on the necessity of hospitality and inclusiveness. Tagle's appeal among progressives was bolstered by the shared values that he held, but these values also closely linked him to Francis's legacy, which some factions within the Church may consider to be a disadvantage. It appeared that these groups would prefer a leader who could demonstrate independence and provide a fresh point of view regarding the situation. The fact that Tagle served as Archbishop of Manila was another factor that was brought up by critics as a complicating factor. As a result of his outspoken criticism of former President Rodrigo Duterte, the Manila Standard accused him of intervening in partisan politics on behalf of the Church. According to reports, those who were critical of Tagle believed that he had gone too far by allowing politically charged homilies that appeared to undermine the administration of Duterte. It was their contention that such actions violated the constitutional principle of the separation of church and state, and they raised concerns about Tagle's ability to maintain political neutrality. According to those who believed that the next pope ought to place a higher priority on spiritual leadership than political engagement, this perception caused concern. While Tagle was serving in Manila, he was subjected to criticism regarding his management of employees who engaged in inappropriate behavior. Critics asserted that he did not hold certain clerics accountable for their actions in an adequate manner, which led to questions regarding his capacity to uphold discipline within the Church. Some individuals were prompted to question whether or not he possessed the determination and authority necessary to effectively guide the global Church as a result of this perceived lack of firmness. Why did Tagle choose to keep quiet about the difficulties that surrounded him? And what was it that prompted him to speak up after he had been through these difficulties? The struggle of Cardinal Tagle. Cardinal Luis Antonio Tagle has been considered a significant candidate in the race for the position of Pope for a considerable amount of time. However, his path to the papacy has not been devoid of challenges. An abundance of admiration has been bestowed upon him as a result of his charisma, extensive experience, and international appeal. However, skeptics frequently question whether he will be able to emerge from the shadow of Pope Francis and carve out his own leadership style. Analysts examined his views on crucial issues, particularly his stance on China, his progressive image, and his potential to unify a church that was fractured. These doubts intensified as experts examined examined his perspectives on these issues. Within church circles around the world, Tagle's reluctance to speak publicly about China has sparked a significant amount of debate. Those who believe that the controversial agreement between Pope Francis and the Chinese Communist Party, CCP, which was intended to improve relations between the Vatican and China, has been met with opposition from those who believe that it undermines the principles that the Church subscribes to. Tagle, who takes a cautious stance similar to that of Francis, has refrained from publicly criticizing the Chinese government. Opponents contend that this silence may be a connection between him and the Vatican's perceived leniency towards the Chinese Communist Party, CCP. It has been pointed out by critics that this reluctance is particularly noteworthy in light of Tagle's prominent positions within the Vatican government. Tagle, who served as prefect for the Congregation for the Evangelization of Peoples from 2019 to 2022, and later as pro-prefect of its successor, the Dicastery for Evangelization, has exerted a significant amount of influence over the Church's efforts to reach out to people all over the world. He has rarely addressed the challenges that Christians in China are facing, despite the fact that he is closely involved in the discussions surrounding the agreement between the Vatican and China. This situation is complicated further by Tagle's history, which adds another layer. Due to the fact that he is of Filipino descent with some Chinese ancestry, he comes from a nation that is currently engaged in territorial disputes with China. The existence of this connection prompts some observers to inquire further about whether or not he would address politically contentious issues in the event that he were to ascend to the position of Pope. It is their opinion that the fact that he is hesitant to take a definite stance on the Vatican-China agreement raises questions about his capacity to deal with other geopolitical issues that may arise in the future. This lack of response was especially noticeable during the trial of Cardinal Joseph Zen, who was a prominent critic of the pact that the Vatican had made with China before the trial began. The predicament that Zen found himself in highlighted the ongoing tensions that exist between the Church and Beijing. Despite the fact that the trial was postponed, the Pope had adopted a diplomatic stance towards China, going so far as to make an attempt to set up a meeting with the 11th President of China, Jinping, while he was in Kazakhstan. However, this meeting was ultimately unsuccessful. Tagle, who was in favor of Francis's strategy that centered on dialogue, chose not to comment on these developments. As a result, critics viewed him as complicit in a policy that some people believe diminished the moral standing of the Church. A number of benefits and drawbacks were associated with Tagle's decision to align himself with Pope Francis. It was not uncommon for his rhetoric to be similar to that of Francis, particularly in regards to migration, inclusiveness, and dialogue. However, he was also closely tied to the legacy of the current Pope, which could alienate more conservative elements within the Church. These shared values appealed to progressives, but they also tied him to the legacy of him. Those who were opposed to the Church argued that it needed a leader who was capable of displaying independence and offering a fresh perspective. One of the things that made Tagle's candidacy more difficult was the fact that his performance in the Philippines was criticized. As Archbishop of Manila, he was accused of engaging in partisan politics by openly opposing the government of former President Rodrigo Duterte. This accusation was leveled against him during his tenure. Some individuals believed that Tagle's decision to permit homilies that contained divisive political messages violated the constitutional principle of the separation of church and state. He was criticized for this decision. Some individuals questioned whether or not his involvement in politics diverted his attention away from his focus on spiritual leadership. Responses to Tagle's handling of clerical misconduct during his time in Manila were met with a significant amount of criticism. However, his critics asserted that he did not hold certain clergy members accountable in an adequate manner, which raised questions about his ability to enforce discipline within the Church. Many individuals were of the opinion that his apparent leniency diminished his chances of becoming a formidable leader, particularly in light of the expectations that are associated with the next pope. Notwithstanding this, Tagle continued to play a significant part in determining the path that the Church would take. The opinions he expressed regarding the Second Vatican Council were met with admiration, despite the fact that they sparked some controversy. Tagle was a member of the editorial team for the Significant History of Vatican II, and he contributed a chapter to the book that analyzed the actions taken by Pope Paul VI during the council proceedings. In spite of the fact that his insightful analysis was praised, there were those who expressed the opinion that it was not objective. In spite of this, his defense of Pope Paul VI's approach, which included a number of different points of view, demonstrated that he had a solid understanding of the complex dynamics that are involved in church leadership. In addition to his academic and domestic responsibilities, Tagle faced a variety of other particular challenges. He had to contend with formidable adversaries within the College of Cardinals, such as the Singaporean Cardinal William Goh, who had a talent for resonating with conservative groups. He was able to gain a strategic advantage thanks to Goh's ability to negotiate differences in ideology. Tagle's supporters argued that his progressive outlook and global appeal represented a beacon of hope for the future of the Church, despite the obstacles that were presented to him regarding his position. In spite of the fact that critics insisted that he must address his perceived shortcomings in order to strengthen his candidature, they believed that his emphasis on inclusiveness and dialogue could steer the Church through the challenges that are occurring all over the world. In what way did Tagle's discovery lead to the significant announcement that he made, and what were those circumstances? This is a very important announcement. A profoundly moving realization prompted Cardinal Luis Antonio Tagle, a prominent leader in the Catholic community around the world, to make a significant announcement not too long ago. A wide-ranging discussion has been sparked as a result of this realization, which intertwined his personal convictions with his aspirations for the Church. It was during a special assembly held at the Vatican that he addressed the pressing issues that marginalized groups are currently facing, as well as the responsibility that the Church has in addressing these challenges. Following what the Cardinal described as a heartbreaking awareness of the growing difficulties faced by Christian communities that are being persecuted all over the world, he took the initiative to make the announcement. In the course of his leadership of the Congregation for the Evangelization of Peoples, and later the Dicastery for Evangelization, Tagle recounted his experiences. During this time, he came across numerous accounts of Christian suffering, particularly in regions where religious freedoms are severely restricted. As a result of this awareness, he stated that he decided to take a more proactive approach to dealing with these pressing matters. As part of his address, Tagle presented a new initiative that is intended to strengthen support for Christians who are being persecuted all over the world. In addition to promoting more robust diplomatic measures to protect religious freedoms, he presented a comprehensive plan that aims to provide both material and spiritual assistance to those in need. One of the most significant moments in his leadership is represented by this program, which is called Faith in Solidarity. It emphasizes the responsibility of the Church to take decisive action during times of crisis. Tagle elaborated that the inspiration for this initiative came from his own personal reflections as well as his travels to regions that were experiencing conflict. The story he told was about a trip he took to a region in the Middle East that was ravaged by war. There, he met families who had lost everything because of their religious beliefs. The resilience and unwavering commitment to their beliefs that they displayed, even in the face of persecution, had a significant impact on him. Tagle pointed out that their suffering was a clarion call for action, highlighting the necessity for the Church to respond with both a sense of urgency and compassion. This announcement marked a significant shift in Tagle's position on a number of the more contentious issues that have been plaguing the Church. He responded openly to the criticisms that were leveled against him for what was perceived to be his inaction on politically charged matters, particularly those that concerned the relationship between the Vatican and China. Despite the fact that he did not specifically mention the Vatican-China agreement, he acknowledged the difficulties that come with engaging in dialogue with nations that restrict religious freedom. Tagle emphasized that his new initiative would place an emphasis on transparency and accountability, thereby reiterating the Church's dedication to protecting its members who are the most vulnerable. People who were paying attention to the situation noted that this announcement was a departure from Tagle's previous cautious tone. Many people interpreted it as an attempt to carve out a distinctive leadership style that is distinct from that of Pope Francis, with whom he has frequently been compared. Tagle demonstrated a readiness to face challenges directly by responding to the criticisms that were directed at him, particularly his reluctance to engage with politically sensitive topics. This is a quality that many people believe is essential for anyone who has aspirations of becoming president of the Catholic Church. In addition, the timing of the announcement was significant because it coincided with the ongoing trial of Cardinal Joseph Zen, who is a prominent critic of the agreement entered into between the Vatican and China. Despite the fact that Tagle did not make any statements regarding the trial itself, his emphasis on solidarity with Christians who are being persecuted was interpreted as a subtle recognition of the Church's obligation to support those who put their lives in danger for their beliefs. Those who are opposed to Tagle's initiative have expressed their concerns regarding regarding whether or not it will actually bring about genuine change or whether it will merely serve as a distraction from previous controversies. The ability of this individual to effectively address the complex geopolitical issues that surround the protection of persecuted Christians is questioned by some individuals. This is particularly true in regions such as China, where the relationship between the church and the government is particularly strained. On the other hand, those who are in favor of the initiative have praised it as a significant step forward. They bring attention to Tagle's dedication to inclusiveness, compassion, and proactive measures, all of which are in line with his unwavering dedication to underserved communities. In his concluding remarks, Tagle emphasized the importance of collective action to assist those who are in need of assistance and called for a unified global effort. He also urged Catholics to support the initiative known as Faith in Solidarity. You should click the next video that appears on your screen, as well as like and subscribe to this video if you found it entertaining.